right, good evening, everybody. How are you doing? Oh, we have a nice turnout. I'm so proud of you all for being here tonight. So tonight is TTT night. What does that stand for? What did you say, Jen? Oh, you're close. Yeah, yes, yeah. Tuesday Testimony Tierra. Yeah, TTT. All right. So Tierra was brought to New Beginnings Recovery Center by a young woman that runs part of the Hazelbrook outfit, Allison Turner. And Allison called me one day and she said, I have a person that I just love dearly that needs some help. Can you get her in? And I think that within 24 hours, Tierra arrived at New Beginnings. And after she got there, I thought, dear Lord, what have you done to me now? I said, this girl is a mess. She's not going to make it. And you have really given me a handful. And she was kind of in the first couple of days a handful. And then after she settled in, Tierra grew and grew in my heart. And today she's a very, very special individual to me personally. She now works at New Beginnings Recovery Center as a case manager. And she is an awesome, awesome young woman. I just almost feel like she is my daughter, and I just love her so much, and I cannot wait to hear her entire testimony, which I've never heard before. And I know that any of you who have given a testimony, which many of you here tonight have done so, you know that it is very nerve-wracking. And so, you know, it's expected. Anytime you talk in front of anybody, it can be really nerve-wracking. I just am so blessed that she has agreed to share her story with us tonight. So without further ado, please welcome Tierra Lewis.
Testing. So Tierra Lewis is my name, if you guys don't know. I just want to start off with a moment of prayer. Lord Jesus, I just come to you right now in the name of Jesus. I just worship your holy name. I praise you, my God, and I thank you for this opportunity that you have given me to share my testimony. I ask that you would move me aside, my God, and that I would decrease and you would increase. I ask that you would prepare the hearts of your people, my God, to accept or change or motivate or whatever it is that you want to do, my God. I ask that you would be in control of tonight, my God, that you would move me aside. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
You show up for everybody but yourself. Got used to doing everything but never ask for help. See, you're the person people take for granted and eventually regret it when they realize the void that you left. And the hardest part for you is just choosing not to go back, because you holding on to memories of what you had. And I know it seems like everything you do, it goes unnoticed. People say they grateful, you just want someone to show it. It's something about being wanted, it's something about being seen, it's something about being chosen over all those other things. It makes you feel alive, makes you feel less alone, makes you feel like maybe you don't always have to be so strong. I get it, but coming from somebody who took so many for granted, I just wanna say that you appreciate it. Don't let somebody's choices and decision give your worth a definition. You deserve to express your love language. You can take my time and attention. My affirmations are endless. Physically touch your soul with these words that I've written. Give you gifts out of love, but I'd expected something back. Serve you with my heart. Look, I swear it ain't no act, cause you deserve all that. You deserve all that. You deserve all that. Baby, you deserve all that. 'Cause every time I look at you, I can see the smile that hides your pain. You want someone to notice you, but you should know that you're appreciated, and you never gon' forget it again. You've been fighting back tears for so long. Feel like no one cares, so you gotta stay strong. You perfected a smile that only breaks when you're alone. It's hard to ask for help when you do so much on your own, but if I had it my way, you would never feel forgotten. Never make you feel like you were just another option. Cause you're the whole package, ain't afraid of your baggage. You just want love, someone to show up with their actions. That ain't too much to ask, look, I swear you ain't no burden. People come and go and make you wonder if it's worth it. I get it, and I know it's hard to trust and you feel like nobody sees you. You don't open up in case they leave you, but you got so much value and I know that you notice. People make you question if you loved, if you chose it, but let them all regret it, cause eventually they'll know it. The one that got away was the one they never noticed. Every time I look at you, I can see the smile that hides your pain.
I just want to first thank you guys for coming. God reminded me that I'm not alone. He has been with me from the beginning, that He has never left me. He reminded me that when I seen one pair of footprints, it was the times He was carrying me. He said, I've never left you. I've always been with you, even in your darkest times. Even when you walked through the valley of darkness, I was with you. I protected you and carried you when you couldn't go on. Don't feel abandoned because I left the 99 over and over for you. Men come and go, but I will never leave you. I didn't call you to be apart. I called you by name for something great. I have called you to reach nations. So always keep your armor on, and I will protect you from the fiery arrows. I have not only called you, but I have chosen you. My daughter, I loved you from the beginning, and that love will continue to the end of time. These are the words that God spoke to me at a vulnerable point in my life. I believe healing begins with the speaking and voicing what's hidden deep within the heart. So I see this as a time of healing. These things I'm going to speak of are the things that have shaped me, the good and the bad, into the woman I am today. In my life, I have struggled with anger issues, addiction, prison systems, codependency, abandonment issue, feeling apart, being accepted, loneliness, feeling love, being rejected, loving myself, self-worth, not feeling smart enough, and I'm even addicted to chaos. I was raised in a family, and my mother's side of the family is black, and they didn't accept me because of the color of my skin or the texture of my hair. My grandma on my dad's side didn't accept me because she was full-blooded Japanese, and she didn't like black people. I never met my father, and I don't know much about him. I do know his family made him to enlist to the army when they found out that he got a black woman pregnant. I had an aunt that called me stupid, dumb, told me things that I wasn't going to amount to nothing. And sometimes she says I was better off dead. That's all I said. That all I was going to amount to was a dope fiend like my mother, pregnant with a lot of kids. These words broke me at a young age. My great-grandmother raised me, and she did the best as she could with the little that she had. Just about all my cousins that are in my age group are in prison or on hardcore drugs. I have a little sister that we are like night and day. She's really quiet. She's really settled. I like how you guys laughed at that because you know that's not me. She's really quiet and settled. She has a beautiful family and 2 children. She is married, and they have been together since high school. Looking back, I believe my sister grew up and she was very depressed. We got along very well. I took care of her the best that I knew how. I would get us ready for school. I would cook us meals because my mom wasn't around a lot at night because she worked. I would beat anyone up if you messed with my little sister. My little sister's family, her dad's side of the family would buy her clothes, so we shared those clothes. But my little sister was always bigger than me, So those clothes were big and baggy on me, so I got used to wearing big, baggy clothes. My mother was an addict to crack cocaine. Most of my life, she was in and out of the picture a lot. Even when she was there, she was still absent. The times I was with my mother, we were homeless, lived in shelters, trap houses, which are drug houses. I remember my mother being really mean, but she was willing to kill for us. When CPS would get involved, she did what it took for us not to go to the state. In my younger adult lives, we didn't get along at all because of my anger I had towards her. I used to pray that God would change her and take her drug habit away until one day God told me not to pray for her, but to pray for myself. So I started praying that God would change me to accept her for how she is, who she is, what she is, and where she is. As I started praying this, God revealed to me how could she teach me something that she was not taught, and how could she love me with a love that she was never given. She did the best that she could with what she was taught while with a drug addiction. My mother was a stripper, so the fast life was embedded into her like it was embedded into me. When I was growing up, my mother dated big-time dealers. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to be a veterinarian. I wanted to be a drug dealer. I wanted to drive the Cadillacs, have the power that drugs brought, and I wanted the money. I couldn't read or write until the 7th grade. I didn't know how to make friends because we moved so much. I moved 5 different schools in one school year before. Gangs were stupid in my eyes, so I didn't get caught up in them. I've never seen trust or loyalty in them, so I left them to the curb. From about the ages of 5 to 7, my uncle molested me. And I put 2 and 2 together that as I'm older, that some of my family knew about this. I formed a drinking habit around the age of 11 because my mom was buying it, so why not do it? I still got my first tattoo when I was 11. My mother told me that if it said mom or her name, that I can get one. I was 12 when I experienced death for the first time. I got up to go to school, and I was getting ready to go. I was getting ready to turn on the light, and the light blew out. So I called for my grandmother the first time. She didn't answer. I called for my grandmother the second time. She didn't answer. I called my grandma the third time, and I knew something was wrong. I walked into her room, and she was dead. And I was the one that found her. This wasn't my first time experiencing death throughout my life. I've seen people shot and killed in front of me numerous of times. As my grandma died, the state told my mom that we needed to go to counseling. So I sat in this counselor's office 3 days in a row, and I didn't say nothing and I didn't talk. She told me on the 3rd day that I needed to start talking. And I said, and she brought me a little bit of joy because she said, you got to open up and go on and talk. She says, I know what you're going through. And I looked the lady square in her eyes and I said, you know what I'm going through? You know how it is not to know where you're going to sleep that night? You know how it is that you don't know where you're going to get your next meal from? She said, no, I don't really know about that, and kind of laughed it off a little bit. And I said, see, I told you don't know what I'm going through. And I got up and I walked out that counselor's office, and I refused to talk to a therapist or a counselor for many years after that. It was my first day of high school, and I wasn't enrolled in any school, nor did I know what school I was going to. We were living in a shelter at this time. And even though we lived in a shelter, I made sure that me and my sister was well groomed, well taken care of. We didn't look like we lived in a shelter. So my mom had a friend, and her daughter went to the Denver Street School, which is an alternative Christian school. So the next day, my mom knew that if she didn't get me in a school, that she may have the police coming after her asking why I'm not enrolled in a school. So she enrolled me into the Denver Street School. This is where I met my godparents. I'm so grateful that God has brought them into my life. They brought me into their family like one of their own children. They put up with all my bull crap over the years. In high school is where my smoking weed came in. My weed habit was just as bad as a crack habit. I spent every dollar I could on it. When I was in high school, I went to school, I played basketball, and I worked a full-time job while giving my mom half of my checks, which what I called rent. 10th grade is where my legal problems came in. We were sitting on the side of the outside at a basketball game, and we had just got done playing basketball. And we kept thinking we heard something, but we were blowing it off because no, we're just high. We're just high. We didn't smoke too much weed. Well, when we went down there, the security guard was standing there with some police officers. We got arrested. I got charged with minor in possession of marijuana. My godmom came and got me out of jail. And for being the first time in jail, nothing about it scared me. Because of this charge, I almost got sent away until I was 18 because I wouldn't stop smoking weed because my habit was that deep. My godmom talked to the judge into letting me go to this camping in California because it was the time of the Columbine shooting. So they were allowing these kids from Colorado to go to all these camps. So I went to this camp for free. This camp helped me stop smoking weed long enough to get off of probation. But this was the first time I ever had an encounter with God, and I invited him into my life. I didn't live for him, but I did ask him to take control of my life. The next event took my drinking to the next level, and it was in 11th grade. By then, my mom had got an apartment through the low-income housing, but my mom's crack habit was out of control. I remember we went to this. We went out to eat with a teacher and some schoolmates, and the school I went to was really small, so we went to go eat. And on the way to go get dropped off at the house, I don't know why I didn't have my key that day, but I didn't have a key. And I remember we went there, and I was calling my mom to tell her that we were going to go, that we were coming home, and she wasn't answering. She wasn't answering the phone, and I didn't understand this because even though my mom had a drug addiction, she would always answer our phone calls. So we got there, and my mom's not there. I go up, and I look at the only window that's open, and it's on the second story, and it's upstairs, and it was my little sister's window. And I remember trying to jump in this window 3 times, and I failed every 3 times. The first 3 times I failed. But after the 3rd time, I went to go sit, and me and my sister, we were talking mess about my mom because she wasn't there to let us in. So night started to grow, and it was getting dark. And as it started getting dark, it started snowing, and me and my little sister didn't have any jackets on. So I told myself that I had no choice but to get through that window, that I have to get me and my sister warm. And we can't sit out here and wait till my mom comes because it was obvious that she wasn't coming. So what did I do? I got myself in that window. 30 minutes, I started smoking some weed when I got in the house. When I got in the house, 30 minutes about, I heard a knock at the door, and I went to go open the door. As I opened this door, there was a police officer standing there. And I thought he said, "Is Carol Lewis here?" And I said, "No, Carol Lewis ain't here." Well, he said, "Carol Lewis isn't your mother?" I said, "Carol Lewis is my mother, but she's not here at the time, or she's not here right now." So he said, there's been an accident and you have to go to the hospital. I went to so he said, you have to come with me. And I said, I'm not going with you. I had this thing against police officers. So I said, I'm not going with you. And he said, well, you have to get to the hospital right now. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to call a friend and she'll take us to the hospital. That police officer sat outside my house and sat on my house until that friend came and got me. As that friend came and got me, that police officer followed us to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, CPS was getting ready to put missing report on us, on me and my sister, because we were minors, and they said they had been looking for us for hours. So now I'm wanting to know where my mom is, and I want to see my mother. As I go in there, they take us to the room where she is. My mother is hooked up to all kinds of machines. She wasn't breathing on her own. She wasn't living on her own. They said that she got hit by a car and threw 10 feet up in the air. My mom was only 95 pounds, so she got thrown up in the air. So she wasn't even able to do anything. She wasn't even breathing on her own. My mom stayed in a coma for 30 days, and I didn't know if she was going to wake up. My mother, in those 30 days, I can't tell you much because my drinking was out of control at that young age. But my mom had to go to a rehabilitation to learn how to walk and talk all over again, everything to live in all over again. So my sister's dad took her. Her dad's side of the family took her, but my family said that I was out of control and they wouldn't take me. So I went to go stay with my mom's friend. And my mom's friend just let me stay under her roof, but there was no direction or guidance for me. So I did whatever I wanted. I was partying anytime I wanted. But one thing I did do was I was at that rehabilitation every day, teaching my mom how to walk again, teaching my mom how to talk again, feeding her, doing her hair. I was bathing her. I told my mom that I wouldn't leave her, and I didn't. My mom still needed some extra help. Someone in the rehabilitation actually died. One of the doctors died in the rehabilitation. So we were forced to go stay with my aunt and uncle in Texas. So we moved to Texas. And at this point, I was grown and I did what I wanted to do. I tell this part of the story only because it was the first time I heard God speak to me. So my sister was graduating from high school, so I came on vacation back to Colorado. And as I came back from Texas to Colorado, I seen my sister graduate. It was a lovely time because she was the only one that graduated out of me and her. I got a GED and the pen. So I remember my aunt was taking me back. My aunt was taking me back to the bus station to go back to Texas. And she told me, as she dropped me off at the Greyhound downtown Denver, she told me, go get on that bus because my bus was leaving in 30 minutes. When she took off, I didn't get on the bus. I ended up going to go score some weed so that I'll have some weed on the ride back to Texas. So I went and I scored. Well, I missed that bus, and I was scared to call her because she made it known that I better go get on that bus. So I called the man that molested me. I called him and told him that I needed a place to stay, that I needed him to come and get me. So he came and got me. He picked me up from the Greyhound. As he picked me up, we got to his house, and when we got to his house, he told me stories about how my grandma was there for him. He showed me pictures of our family as we were growing up. He even gave me a couple of pictures to take back home with me. But what he did was he made it like nothing ever happened. So he went to sleep. And as he went to sleep, I knew where he kept his loaded gun. So I went to the cabinet in the kitchen and got his loaded gun. And I stood in his bedroom door, and I was going to pull the trigger. I was standing there shaking, and I was going to pull that trigger. And as I went to go pull the trigger, I heard a voice say, "Don't do it. Vengeance is mine. He will suffer the rest of his life," is exactly what I heard. So I broke down crying, and I walked away from the door. When I walked away from that door, I forgave him, and I no longer did allow that to affect my life. I was free from the suffering, what he did for me, what he did to me. I never did speak to him another day of his life, but I did hear that he really suffered a hard life. A couple strokes, a couple heart attacks, he really did suffer. I went back to Texas and I was partying and not doing much with my life. So I went to go stay with my godparents in Oregon. My mother, a month later, we moved across to New Hampshire. Not long after we got into New Hampshire, I was kicked out of the house for partying and coming home too late. And they had kids that they were raising and trying to do right by. I was messing with this Brazilian guy. I was messing around with this Brazilian guy, and I ended up moving in with a group of them. I got pregnant by him. And in the beginning, he didn't believe it was his child, nor did he want anything to do with this child. But a girl that I was messing around with convinced him that it was his child. So he came to accept our child, and we talked about having a family. I never did talk about this man. I never did disrespect this man. Never did I wrong this man. I was good to this man because I think I was just desperate to have my own family. I actually loved and cared this man. But where I did go wrong is that I took his baby from him. He kept tossing around the idea that he could send my baby to his mom and dad in Brazil to raise him. And one day he threatened me with this because he got angry. So I dipped. I went back to Texas. When I left, I knew he would never see his son again. I knew my son would never know his father. I knew I would never talk to him again. And that's exactly what happened. I've never had another conversation with this man. He has no idea where his son is or what has happened to his son. When I got back to Texas, I thought about abortion, but I didn't have the guts. I even thought about adoption. Honestly, I was confused with the idea of a child having a child. I was only 18, and what did I know about having a child or raising a baby? I went into a Christian woman's home through Victory Outreach International. And in this time, God began to form this love for me and my baby. I fell in love with the baby boy that was growing inside of me. Nothing could take that love from me. When he was born, he was the cutest little thing. He had so much hair. He slept all through the night. He was a good, perfect baby. He didn't even cry a lot, and his little hands were so cute. 6 months after this, he was born. And we were going to school that day. I had just got him out of daycare, and he was fussing, and he was fussing. And I fed him his baby food, and I changed his little clothes to some pajamas. And as I changed his clothes, I went to go put him on the bed. And at that time, we were staying with my aunt. And we were sleeping on a futon. Well, I didn't pull the futon out. And I laid him in there. And I remember patting his little back. Well, at 3 in the morning, I woke up. And I found my little boy passed away because I believe I suffocated him. My weight suffocated him because I went to sleep before him. My son was gone, and it was my fault. We called 911, and they came and they took samples of the milk. They took his things, like the clothes he was wearing. They took his blankets. And then my aunt asked them not to put me in a car, handcuffed, so they put me in the back of a police car. They took me to a police station. And they interrogated me for hours at a time. They let me go and told me that I couldn't leave Texas until the autopsy came back. I thought I was going to prison for something that I didn't even mean to happen. The autopsy came back and they ruled it out as SIDS. But deep inside, I faulted myself all these years for it. I suppressed every memory, everything about him, to the point I can't even tell you his birthday. The reason I know his death anniversary is because every year for 16 years I relapsed on that day. Except for the last 2 years. After he passed away, what sucked the most was that everybody left me. My friends, my family, they all left me. They separated themselves from me because they didn't know how to comfort me. They didn't know how to be there for me. So I was all alone. Everyone left when I was dying inside. So I turned to the streets. And 4 weeks later, I was smoking crack. I did any and everything under the sun to get a hit, just to fill the void, to numb the pain, to escape. For most, the high starts off enjoyable, but for me, in the beginning, I hated the high. It was only to escape. I didn't even experience a high off of crack for 7 to 8 years later. Shortly after this, I caught a possession and a delivery of a controlled substance case. I went out and I was trying at this time to sell drugs. And I was partnering up with someone. And the smoker came to the house that we were at. And he asked for the person I was with. But the person I was with told him to go on, that it was my turn to go hit the lick. So I went out with him, and he went to go serve the car. I stood by the fence, and as I stood by the fence, he brought the money back to me. As he brought the money back to me, I turned around, and there was the police coming up the street. I began to dip out like I'm used to. I began to run. They caught up with me. As they caught up with me, I didn't have the money that they were looking for, nor did I have any drugs on me. I didn't have the drugs on me, so what they did was they brought the guy, and the guy identified me as the one that's giving them the drugs. They took me to the police station, so again, I'm sitting in the police station getting interrogated. They were wanting to know where I was getting the drugs from, who I was getting the drugs from, who was I with. So I gave them 3 fake names and 3 fake addresses. They told me that they were going to come back and I had to go in this house when they came back with the money, when they called me to go in these houses. When they called me 3 days later, I told them I told them some things that wasn't right. And I told them I don't work for the feds. They're going to have to come get me. So the next day, I was leaving to go out the apartment, and I was going to dip off to Mexico because I was in Texas. I was going to dip off and to go to Mexico. Well, as I was leaving, the police was standing outside the door. And I thought it was somebody robbing me because these weren't in uniform. They were in all black. That said SWAT. So I thought someone was there to rob me because I didn't see what their shirt said. And I went to go swing on the lady officer, and she grabbed my hand, and I snatched back, and I fell down into the glass table. I have a scar right here that proves that I fell into that glass table. Well, they took me to jail. I got to avert probation, and it was my first felony. I kept getting sent back and forth in front of the judge for probation violations. I think he felt sorry for me because he gave me the chance after chance. He told me the last time I went in front of him that if I came back into the courtroom, he was sending me to the penitentiary. And shortly after that, he was sending me to the penitentiary. I did 2 years on Hilltop. In the pen, I got my GED. But what the pen did was help me grow up. I went in thinking like a child and came out thinking like an adult. No one owes me nothing, and it's my responsibility to take care of myself. If I want or need something, I need to find a means to getting it myself. When I got out the pen, I took a culinary course that was only offered to felons. This program taught me how not to allow my felonies to hold me back, and never did I allow them to hold me back. It taught me how to sell myself to employers as a felon. It taught me cooking skills all the way around the kitchen. It taught me how to serve in fine dining. It taught me how to work under pressure and not give up under pressure. It taught me how to be a leader and to lead by example. It also taught me management skills and how to utilize a team to the fullest of their potential. In this time, in this part of the story, I see God protecting me, not allowing me to get too deep into the game. I had a homegirl in Texas, and I kept telling her, plug me in with your baby daddy. And if y'all know what that means, plug me in with your baby daddy. That means hook me up so I can do business with your baby daddy. Plug me in with your baby daddy is what I kept telling her, and she kept telling me no. She kept telling me no. And the reason she kept telling me no is because she knew he was too deep into the cartel. So the last time I asked her to plug me in with your baby daddy, she said, okay, and we went and met him. Well, she made him give his word that he wouldn't plug me all the way in with the cartel, and that I could only do business with him. And that's exactly what he did. He kept his word. He never did allow me to go to his house when anybody was there. If I called and he told me not to go, I was not to go. I never did ever see this man with anyone outside of his baby's mother. So he was fronting me 20 to 40 pounds of weed at this time. I was making a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. But my cut, I was making thousands of dollars, but I still had a crack habit. When I took that first hit, I was blowing all my cut. For an addict like me, with that much money, digging myself out of holes become a normal thing for me. One day I dug myself a hole that I didn't want to come out of, and I didn't want to live like this no more. So I paid the dude the money that I did owe him, and I called my godmom. She didn't ask any questions. All she asked was, did I want to come home? She didn't know what was going on in my life, nor did she know about my crack addiction. But 2 hours later, I had a plane ticket to come back to Colorado. I came back and went into the kitchen industry. But with the kitchen industry comes a lot of drinking. So all I did was trade one addiction for the other. I started drinking more than most. I lived at the bars every night. I was at the after parties all the time. I think back, and I don't even know how I was making it, but I was living. I don't even know how I was living, but it was happening. Then I caught my second DUI. My first DUI was in Texas. They only gave me 4 days, and they took my license. by this time, my family was telling me that my drinking was a problem, but I wasn't trying to hear that. How do I have a problem? I was going to work every day. I was taking care of myself. I was making my own money. I wasn't getting high. So how did I have a problem? I got a public defender. And as I sat in there, I went to court. And the public defender told me, I told the public defender, I said, I'm going to take my time. I don't want any probation. And he said, you can't do that. And I said, yes, I can. And he said, no, you can't. You have to take the probation. And I looked at him because he was a public defender. I sat there, I squared him up, and I looked him straight in his eyes. And I said, I can take my time because it's my rights. You don't work for them, you work for me. So go in there and get my time for my case. He went in there. When he went in there, he came back out and he said, Lewis, they're giving you 12 months. And I said, I'm not taking that. Go back in there. He came back out and he said, they said, they're giving you 9 months. I said, I ain't taking that. Go back in there. The third time he came out, he said, Lewis, they said, if you don't take this time that they're offering you right here, that they're giving you all the time. And I said, what is it? And he said, 6 months. I said, great, that's what I wanted. Where do I sign? Where do I sign? And I said, now I want you to go back in there and I want you to get me work release. Ask them to grant me work release. So at that time I was working 2 jobs and they granted me work release. I was working 2 jobs, leaving in the morning at 6 a.m., going back at 1 a.m., and I stayed in jail for 1 day a week. This is where I feel like I got over on the system. I did my time, but as soon as I got out, I was right back to the same things, drinking, out of control. Shortly after this, a local dealer in Castle Rock asked me if I wanted to sell some coke for him while he was out of town. I wasn't into owing people anymore, so I bought an 8-ball. And I sold that 8-ball in 30 minutes. I seen how fast I could get rid of this, that I started networking and finding my own dealer so I can do this for myself. I was working 2 jobs and selling coke during the night. I went really big, and I mean really big, really fast. But no one knew the amount of money that I was bringing in because I didn't trust no one, so I didn't tell no one because I've always had trust issues. My grandmom was getting married, and it was her wedding. She just found this out the other day. She was getting married, and I went to the wedding. I was in the wedding, so I had my little dress on. And after the wedding, I left, and I went down to the bar to go hit a couple licks. As I went to the bar, I seen the police circling the bar a lot, more police than normal. So I ended up dipping before 2 o'clock because I didn't want to be leaving at 2 o'clock. So I left the bar, and as I left the bar, I lived 2 blocks from the bar that I was in. So as I left the bar, I hit the corner, and as I hit the corner, like 4 police cars swarmed me, but then they dispersed. And then, And then I went, and they followed me. One of them followed me like a block away from my house. As they followed me, he ended up stopping me 1 block from my house. He came up to the window, and I said, is there a problem, officer? And he said, yeah, your windows are too tinted. So by then, I knew what was up. As he was walking off with my driver's license, another cop was coming up with the dog, and they took dogs around my car. But as they took dogs around my car, they said the dog sniffed it in the back. Well, this was a lie because the dope was in the front of my car. They found $1,500, but they never did find the drugs. So they ended up having to let me go. If the cops ain't got nothing on you in 30 minutes, then they have to let you go. And it was past 30 minutes, so they ended up letting me go. I went to the house, and I tell or she's my ex now, but I tell my girlfriend, we got to go. We got to get out of here. So we went to go get a room down in DTC. And as we got that room down in DTC, we stayed there for a week and a half, about a week and a half. Well, I was going back into Castle Rock to go to the house, and as I went into Castle Rock, I was getting off on Wolfensberger, and as a police officer spotted me and started following me. So I knew. 2 days later, I hired a moving company, and I dipped. I'm good at dipping. 2 days later, I hired a moving company, and I dipped. I moved back outside. I moved outside of Douglas County 1 block. I laid low, but I didn't stop selling. What I did was go to the next level. I stopped selling 50 and 100 bags and started selling whole ounces. If you weren't spending 12 or more with me, then you weren't getting my business. I was still working 2 jobs, selling when I wasn't working, and I was selling even when I was working. By this time, I was snorting coke to stay awake while trying to maintain an alcohol problem. But not long after this, I caught my 3rd DUI. My 3rd DUI, we went to go Castle Rock, and we were partying with a friend, and we were drinking some peppermint schnapps. And we went to the liquor store, I don't want to say 3 times. Well, my girlfriend says, give me the keys. Give me the keys, you're not driving. And I said, why? We all been drinking. I mean, I'm not drunk, so you know how we are. I'm not drunk. Well, she ended up getting mad and ended up leaving. As she left, I went to go look for her. There's 3 places that I thought she would be: at the friend's house, the bar, or her mom's house. So I went and I made that circle like 4 times. But every time I went to the bar, I had 2 shots and a beer. Every time I went to the friend's house, I had 3 more shots and a beer. So 3 in the morning, I didn't find her. So I'm on I-25, and I'm driving, and I decided that I was going to go stay at the friend's house. And as I go to stay at the friend's house, my tire pops on the highway. And I said, I can't stay here. I can't stay here. I mean, the police is going to come. I'm going to catch another DUI. So what did I do? I kept driving on that popped tire. There's sparks flying. And I guess because of my sparks flying, Highway Patrol had seen me and caught me. I mean, they didn't catch me, but they started following me. Well, as I exit the highway, I hit a wall because I took that curve tried to take the curve too fast that I hit a wall. I bounced off the wall, I jumped a curve, hit a pole, jumped another curve, and wrapped around a pole. I only had 1 scratch on me. I got out and started walking. I got to get out of here. So I started walking away. Well, as I started walking away, that highway patrol that was following me was right there. And they were saying, hey, miss, hey, miss. So I was catching my 3rd DUI. I took 2 years probation with an intense outpatient program. And I mean, this program was intense. I quit one of my jobs, but kept one to look good for probation. By now, I'm making so much money. I had 3 dope houses, 3 money houses, and I had money set aside for even when I got popped, and most don't do that. I was spending thousands of dollars in the strip club a weekend just to show out. I would go just to show out. Didn't want no dances, didn't want nothing. I just want to show out. I was driving Cadillacs. If I bought it, and I wanted it, if I seen it and I wanted it, I bought it. Then I moved into cooking crack and selling crack. And not long after this, I almost got popped. This guy, he was selling for me. And he was selling for me, and I had just gave him a sack. He sold some of that to to a guy that sold to undercover. Well, as the undercover standing there with it, I kept telling her, go upstairs, go chill with us. And she looked scared. She was real pretty, but she was real scared. She looked like she was scared. And I said, you don't have to worry about nothing. We ride around here with gats. And then she seen me go into my Cadillac. So she ended up walking off, and then the police come. Well, the police got the guy that sold the dope to the undercover, but I dipped out and went into somebody's apartment. And as I dipped out and went into this apartment, I kept telling the dude, go out there, go out there and see what they're doing, see what's going on. Well, he went out there 3 or 4 times. When he came back in, he said they wanted to talk to me. And I said, for what? I ain't have nothing to do with it. Well, the guy that was sitting at the front desk wouldn't give him the footage of what apartment I went into. So I went out there and I knew I had to talk to them. So, and there was no leaving that place until talking to them. So I said, well, where are they at? When I went out to the front desk, and he said, just go, they're upstairs. And I said, I'm not leaving. I get into that car, they're going to stop me. So when they came down, I said, hi, officers, how y'all doing? Well, I mean, I had nothing to do with that, and I knew I didn't. They didn't have no evidence that I had anything to do with it. I said, well, I heard that you want to talk to me. What is it that I can help you with? And they said, well, we heard that you have guns in your car, because I was the one showing out telling the girl, we ride around here with gats. So what did they do? They searched my car for guns. But I opened the car, I popped the trunk, and I allowed them to go search. Well, how I opened it, they knew there was nothing in my car. So a week after that, my mom got into a fight with this chick. My mom got into a fight with this chick because she was owed her $20, and they were fighting over some drugs or $20. I don't even really know. But I tell my mom, go give the lady this $20 and make the situation over with. Well, my mom was like, she went to go get the $20, and she's like, I'm not going to give that lady nothing. That lady ain't getting nothing from me because I didn't take no money from her. And I said, okay, and it made me angry because she wouldn't just take the $20. I had just picked up a little pack of a 9-pack. So I had this little pack on me, so I went to go put it in the safe. I never kept this much dope at my mom's house. So I went to go put it in the safe, and as I put it in the safe, I had to go help hit a lick. I went to go hit a lick, which was go serve a customer. Well, as I was serving this customer, I got a phone call. My mom told me that she beat the lady up in the elevator. She didn't tell, she said she beat the lady up in the elevator. Okay, so now I'm mad. Now you guys are fighting over this $20 that has nothing that you should have just gave back. So I hung up on my mom. 5 minutes later, she's calling me back telling me not to go to the house. Well, the lady called the cops, and the lady didn't tell the cops that my mom beat her up or they got into a fight. She told the cops that I was out there selling dope at my mom's house, that there was guns in that apartment, that she gave them my government name. She gave them the make and model of my car, and they sat on my mom's house for about 9 days. I had to call my ex in Michigan, and if it was the only person I knew that was going in there, coming out with everything that needed to come out, was her. So I paid for a plane ticket for her to come down from Michigan. And as she came down from Michigan, we Ubered her in. And sure enough, she got the guns and she got the drugs and came out while the police was sitting right across the street. But my mom was able to have these workers, like, come clean your house. So she looked like she was going in with some McDonald's and coming out like she just cleaned the house or something. But they wanted me in that house with that dope, so I know that's the reason they didn't go in. The streets were already telling me that my picture was being put up in lineups at the police, and being questioned about if they knew, if anyone knew what I was doing. I knew at this point I needed to get out the game. I knew my time was up. So I moved to Michigan, and now this is where my meth addiction started. I took about a half a pound of meth thinking that I was going to sell it over there. I didn't work for a while when I got there because of all the money that I was living off of, so I didn't get a job for months after I was there. I just transferred the party from Colorado to Michigan. I was eating so much meth at this time that sometimes I felt like I was dying from eating so much, but in reality, inside, I did want to die. I felt so hopeless. If I had the guts to take my own life, this would have been the time that I would have took my life. Then I caught a felon in possession of a firearm. Me and my ex got into it out in Michigan, and I said I was going to go take a walk, and we had been drinking. I told her I was going to go take a walk, and as I took a walk, I grabbed the gun out the safe. And as I was walking down the street, I began to just blow off rounds. Well, the police came, and if I had that gun and it was showing, then they wouldn't even have did nothing to me because it's an open carry. But because it was in the back of my pants, they took me to jail. When I went to court, the judge said that she would give me, I asked the judge for my time, and she said she couldn't do that. And I said, why? I just want to go back home. And she says, I have to watch you. And she says, I'm putting you on 1 year of probation. But she said, if you do 6 months, then I'll let you go. She said, you do 6 months without getting into any trouble while on this probation, I'll let you go. Guys, I don't know how I made it through this probation. Every time I seen my probation officer, I hadn't went to sleep for 4 and 5 days at a time. When they came to search the house that I was living in, there was guns in the safe that I made my girlfriend's grandpa leave so that they wouldn't ask to open the safes. When they came to see if the address was okay for me to live at, I had been up partying all night. So 6 months later, I ended up getting pops, and they said that I didn't give them a change of address. And I went into probation, and I was so high out of my mind that I couldn't even keep my story straight, that I slipped and told him that I moved. And he said, what, you moved? And I said, yeah, and I knew right then and there I was going down. He said that I had to go back on Monday and go in front of the judge, and he was asking for 6 months, that I get 6 months for not reporting my address. I remember that Friday like it was yesterday. That Saturday I made a pact with myself that I wasn't going to get high until I came up with a plan. That Monday I was leaving Michigan to go back to Colorado to handle my affairs. I was going to turn myself in for a DUI probation. I left here, and I was supposed to get 1 year that I thought I was going to get extradited back for 5 over there in Michigan. When I came back to Colorado, not only was my addiction out of control, but I was out of control. I thought I was going to have 5 or more years of my life locked away, but God had other plans. I got 90 days when I turned myself in for a DUI case in Michigan, and it wasn't extraditable. It was during COVID, so I called Michigan and had a court date in 2 days. The judge remembered me and what she told me about the 6 months, so she closed the case. Never did I have to go back to Michigan. As she closed the case, I made a commitment to myself that I was done with the criminal justice system and that I wasn't going to get into trouble anymore. I had a friend that was my assistant to the Bible study I gave in the 90 days. We got together and we were going to open sober living houses. She was living in sober living, and she knew what it was all about. I didn't know one thing about sober living except what I had learned on my own. We had a name, we had contracts written out. We were as far as looking for houses to rent, but then I relapsed. The one thing that was different about this relapse is that I didn't shut God out. I would be getting high, crying out to God. I remember one night I told God, I see no light at the end of the tunnel, and I have no hope in my situation. The high was enjoyable now, and I didn't want to part ways with it. But the one thing I did hang on to was my faith that God was going to see me through, however this looked. And honestly, that was the only thing I was holding on to. My lease was up in my condo, so I decided to go to sober living. So I went into Hazelbrook with the mindset thinking of learning the business, but also to work on myself. That was the first year I made it through my son's death anniversary without drinking or getting high. I started seeing a counselor for the first time again in my life, and for once I was working on myself. I ended up running TSZ houses, which are detox houses for Hazelbrook. But what I was doing was putting all my eggs in one basket. I slept there, I worked there. Everyone and everything I knew about sobriety was there, so I left Hazelbrook and then I relapsed again. I got myself clean to go back to Hazelbrook, to go back in with a clean UA and not to go out on a blackout period. But I lasted 1 week because I was still trying to live in the streets. My last run was 12 days that I thought was 7 days, with 6 to 8 hours of sleep, and that during the whole time. And every day I was smoking a half an ounce. That's when I came to MBRC, and I came for everyone around me but myself until I got some sleep and the drugs wore off. I wanted it for me. I graduated the program. Today I'm a caseworker for New Beginnings Recovery Center. It brings my heart joy to be able to set people up with the things they need to make it after they leave the center. I'm a treasurer at the CA group I attend. I pay the rent for the space that we rent and buy the things that we need for the meeting. I work a program of my own outside of work because I understand that community is not only in one place. I still see a therapist once a month because in no shape, form, or fashion have I arrived. I have a sponsor that I'm working the steps with for my own healing because healing is the step that will keep me from not going back. I now started cutting off people, places, and things, but this isn't always easy because the streets are embedded in me. I try my best to set healthy boundaries with friends and family, but this also isn't easy. I've learned how to let go of chaos and find God's peace in the midst. Today I have a relationship with my Maker, Jesus Christ, and all glory and honor goes to him because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. Today I choose recovery for me because I'm worthy and I deserve it. Thank you all for coming out. I appreciate you guys listening to my story. I appreciate my family being here. I appreciate the center. I appreciate all the homes. I appreciate everyone that has been with me through this, and I appreciate you coming out.
So, Miss Tierra, wonderful, wonderful job. So, on behalf of Shay, I'm gonna present these on behalf of Shay. Is
Okay.
some flowers for you.
Okay.
And then this was designed by Chris just for you, if you haven't seen it. Tierra loves Nike shoes and all kinds of tennis shoes. How many pair do you have?
A lot.
She's got a lot. Every time I saw her, she had a new pair of tennis shoes. So this just said Tierra Lewis, a story of how she walked her way into recovery, August the 1st of 2023. So that is for you on behalf mainly of Chris, but of New Beginnings.
Thank you.
All right. So real quick, before we go, does anybody have any questions for Tierra? Yes, Keith.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice. Yes, Mark. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Yes, Norman.
Yep.
Tierra, what's your biggest hopes and strengths?
For my biggest what?
Hopes and strength.
You know, your biggest hope, my hope for everyone in this room is that they find Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, that they will see that he has been with you even through the time of darkness, that even when you were at your lowest point, he had you there for a reason, and he has you here right now for a season as this.
All right, way in the back. Question for you?
Yeah, I knew someone was gonna ask. That's Erica Mason, and it's called Unappreciated.
Mary, right here.
Yes.
Well, wait one second.
After.
Wait 1 second. We'll do it after. Yes, Mark, do you?
Tierra, you are a woman of God.
Thank you.
And I remember my first couple of days in the center, and I was having a rough time. And you prayed with me, and it meant a lot.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. Nope.
Just like to say, welcome to the family. We love you. I love you. I love you so much. And I have barely known you for a short period of time.
Thank you.
And for you to be so transparent, it gives room for Jesus to come through.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people in this room, as well as me, and I could probably speak for most, that we were touched by your story. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what the future holds for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Jean.
So I want to just do one more quick thing before we leave tonight, because we also need to give honor. Her godparents are here tonight. Would you come up, please? You know, they deserve a lot of glory for what they have done in Tierra's life. And I know because she mentioned them to you during her testimony, it's nice to see who they really are, that
No.
they're really real people.
And I just want to say thank you to everyone who supported Tierra and walked along this journey with her, including the rest of our family. When she got through recovery this time, it was, I don't know, we kept waiting for the phone call. We thought, we hope we get the phone call that she's in jail and that she's not dead, because her addiction was so out of control. So I just am so grateful for everybody that supported her, and for God for literally like yanking her out of the streets. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm really excited to see what God's gotten for her. And she has a gift of prayer. Whoever mentioned that she prayed for them and it made a difference, yeah, get her to pray for you whenever you can.
All right, thank you. You guys have a good night.
Thank you.
Powerful. Oh, powerful, powerful girl.
Thank you.